Good evening from Jerusalem. Things are moving quickly here. In the past few hours, my sources close to the negotiations between Israel and Hamas have told me they are cautiously optimistic a deal will be signed within 24 to 36 hours. That could mean that a pause in airstrikes and the release of hostages could happen by this weekend. But we have been here before, and we know that anything can change in the negotiating room. But the US president seems even motivated than more motivated rather than before to secure peace. Just have a listen to what he said in the past half an hour.
They're doing very well. We have a great team over there, great negotiators, and there are unfortunately great negotiators on the other side also. But it's something I think that will happen, got a good chance of happening. I may go there sometime toward the end of the week, maybe on Sunday, actually. And we'll see, but there's a very good chance negotiations are going along very well. We're dealing with Hamas and many of the countries. As you know, we have all of the Muslim countries are included. All of the Arab countries are included. Very rich countries and some that are not so rich, but just about everybody's included. It's never happened before. Nothing like that's happened before. And our final negotiation, as you know, is with Hamas. And it seems to be going well, so we'll let you know. If that's the case, we'll be leaving probably on Sunday, maybe Saturday, maybe a little later than Saturday evening, but that seems to be our schedule.
That was President Trump speaking a little earlier. Well, the talks have gained pace quite quickly after a few high-profile arrivals in Sharm el-Sheikh. US Special Envoy Steve Witkoff was parachuted in to shepherd the talks, as was Jared Kushner, President Trump's son-in-law. Doha has sent its Prime Minister and Foreign Minister Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani. Turkey's intelligence chief Ibrahim Kalin is also involved in the negotiations. Israel's team is led by Strategic Affairs Minister Ron Dermer, and the Hamas delegation is headed by Khalil al-Hayya. Well, our Middle East correspondent Adam Parsons is with me here now. And Adam, suddenly, just in the last few hours, things have suddenly gained quite a momentum and quite a pace. We did kind of expect it. We knew that Steve Witkoff was going to be there alongside Jared Kushner today. It's
fascinating. It feels like this morning we knew there was progress, but it was kind of smoke signals. And now the smoke signals are billowing. People talking to you, people talking to me, and between the conversations you and I have had, there is a narrative emerging, an expectation of a deal. You're being told it could happen tomorrow. I'm being told it'll happen on Friday. And yet the outline of the deal feels like we can see it now. And I think what is crucial within this is the influence that is being exerted by Arab states on Hamas. According to what I'm hearing, they are telling Hamas, this is as good a deal as you're going to get. Don't keep fighting for things you can't win. You are going to get a prisoner exchange. My sources within the Israeli political scene are saying, yes, we will give up prisoners, people that we don't particularly want to give up, but we are prepared to do this. We want our hostages back. And I think, crucially, we're looking at the first stage here. I think whether it's for good or worse, the latter question, some of them are going to be kicked into the long grass to get a ceasefire. Now, a lot of this is happening in back channels. But I think it's an interesting thing to listen to is Hakan Fidan, the Turkish foreign minister. I thought he was pretty clear about his optimism. This is what he had to say a bit earlier.
If an agreement is reached today, a ceasefire will be declared. Following the ceasefire, those held by both sides and agreed upon hostages and remains in Hamas's hands, those in Israel's custody serving life sentences up to a certain amount, a certain number of Palestinians arrested after October 7, will be released. There will be an exchange of these. This is the second article.
So there's the Turkish foreign minister there. Donald Trump, interestingly, said just in the last few minutes that, look, everyone is involved. Many leaders from across the Arab world, the Israelis, Hamas. He is basically saying, look, I've got everyone involved. I want this deal done. And he might potentially be coming to the region at the end of the week.
I think we have to admit that Donald Trump has had a huge influence on this. His optimism, his momentum, but also what I'm being told is that Jared Kushner and Steve Witkoff, for all the criticism they have had by a lot of people around the world, in this particular deal are carrying a lot of weight. That this transactional approach that Donald Trump and his team are bringing to this, about saying to people, you need stability in the Middle East. You need this for economic growth. You can't rely on oil. You need other things. You need to have a trade deal. And this is playing really well with some of these Arab nations. It's playing well with Israel. Now, Hamas having to take the brunt of this, about being told this is as good as it's going to get. But some of the details that we're getting now, I'm being told that the UAE will provide military for a force, that the names of some of the people who are being talked about for the prisoner exchange, we're starting to get into some of that quite granular detail. And it is Friday, the Nobel Peace Prize, and remarkable. I mean, for a lot of people think it can't be down to this. There are still people saying to me, that is a factor in this. Donald Trump wants to be talked about in the Nobel Peace Prize, even if he doesn't win it.
Adam, thank you so much. And of course, you will join us again later in the programme. Let's go straight to the United States and speak to our US correspondent, Mark Stone, who joins us live now from Washington. And Mark, what I'm hearing is cautious optimism. Everyone knows in some way we've been here before, but this time it feels different.
It does. Incidentally, on the Nobel Peace Prize, it's clear that Donald Trump is using this moment because he knows that Friday is the deadline. But it's also the case that the nominations for this year's prize needed to be in by January. So it seems very improbable that he would win it. Certainly not for this moment this year. But we know it's very important indeed to him. You're absolutely right. There is a sense of momentum of a type that we have not seen at all before. Sources I'm talking to are using the phrase endgame, that this is the moment, that the announcement by Hamas that it is willing to hand over all the hostages that are alive in one go, that clearly is new. And that, I think, is kind of the key for President Trump, that unlocks everything else, that allows him, with that commitment that Hamas has given, to be able to put pressure on the Israelis to offer concessions that they might not otherwise have been willing to do. He can put American pressure on Israel that he has been unwilling to put on before, because of that Hamas commitment to release all the living hostages. There is a question mark over several issues which are kind of underneath the momentum. First of all, the hostages that are no longer alive. Hamas has been quite clear that it believes that it doesn't know where many of these dead hostages are. Why? Because those that were holding them have been killed, and so they simply cannot find out where they are. So that will take time. But I'm told that from President Trump's perspective, that's not a problem necessarily. Get the ones who are alive out now in one go, and then once the ceasefire has taken shape, then those hostages that are no longer alive, that the search can begin to find their remains and to bring them home. There's also the question of disarmament, and I'm told that this is another sticking point. To what degree is Hamas willing and being demanded to disarm by Israel? Are we talking about only heavy weapons, or are we talking about small arms as well? There is, I can tell you, some disagreement between the Americans and the Israelis on that very issue, whether Hamas fighters who remain alive in Gaza will still be allowed to hold on to small arms that they may have. These sound like technical details, but they are absolutely key. So those are the sorts of issues. You talk about Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner and the momentum that they have injected into the process. Absolutely true. My understanding is that they were given an agreement by President Trump that if needed, they could talk directly to Hamas. Now, we know that in the past, American officials have spoken and sat around a table with Hamas, but not at not at Witkoff and Kushner's level. President Trump gave them the green light to be able to do that if they thought it was necessary. What I don't know is whether those direct talks between Witkoff, Kushner and Hamas have actually taken place. But we're in a a sense, there is now a genuine sense of real momentum in this process. Jared Kushner, Yalda, I'm told, appears now to be taking the lead in this, perhaps ahead of Steve Witkoff. So that's very interesting detail as well. And Donald Trump has now said, as you played in that clip, that he is preparing to travel to the Middle East. I wonder whether he would go to Sharm el-Sheikh by that stage, by Sunday, Saturday, when he says he'd go. Sharm el-Sheikh might be kind of in the past. Perhaps he would go to Israel, to Jerusalem, to Tel Aviv, because the prize, the photo for President Trump's perspective would be him alongside the released hostages.
Indeed, Mark, and of course we will continue to follow those developments. Mark, thank you so much for bringing us up to date. Joining me now is Ehud Barak, the former Prime Minister of Israel and a former military general. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us here on the programme. I just want to get your reaction to some of the news we're hearing coming out of Sharm el-Sheikh. Everyone that we've been speaking to, sources familiar with what is going on, say they are cautiously optimistic.
First of all, the Trump plan is very good news for Israel. Very good. Even the first 4 steps, which quite highly probably will be completed within the next 36 hours and be announced, namely the release of hostages, release of Palestinian prisoners, the withdrawal of Israel to certain mutually agreed lines, mainly dictated by the Americans, and having a formal announcement of end of war. The rest of the 16 will take more time and are not clear yet, but I'm still quite optimistic about them as well. There will be more difficulties. But having said that, for Israel, it's a great opportunity, something that we waited for a long time. Many Israelis argue that it could have been achieved many months ago, but for different reasons, probably doesn't make sense to go into them right now. It was delayed, and now it's happening. It's more than anything else, it's a result of the determination of Trump to get it done. He can dictate to Netanyahu as the same as dictated to him to make a U-turn of jets on the way to Iran just few months ago. And he can dictate to him, but his real success is to bring vis-a-vis Hamas, who is very kind of elusive kind of organization. They don't have any military anymore. As a military force, they were defeated more than a year ago. Now it's a type of guerrilla war that never ends. So he succeeded to bring not just those Arab leaders who do not like Hamas, like the Egyptians, Emiratis, or Saudis, but those who support Hamas. Qatar and mainly Turkey. We heard right now Fidan. Fidan is a very effective player in the Middle East. Formerly he was the head of intelligence, and Kalin, his successor, is now over there in Sharm el-Sheikh. Turkey, without Turkey and Qatar, Hamas has no choice but to accept the terms that are dictated. Of course, they expect it to be treated fairly, so to speak.
Prime Minister, do you think that, the kind of pressure you're talking about that President Trump has put on Benjamin Netanyahu, and you're saying Turkey and Qatar have put equal amount of pressure on Hamas, do you think that that pressure will continue and that this process will not collapse at some point? Because you said that you are optimistic that perhaps the 16 points that are quite tricky, that they will hold too.
Yeah, I hope and pray that they will hold. But about the first 4 points, they will be probably completed within the next 36 hours. The rest of the 16 might create some problems. I expect Trump to continue his pressure, and he can basically bring the terms. Both sides will have to make some compromises, but he can put an end to this war, which I believe personally the war on Gaza right now is a war of deception. It's nothing to do with the security interest or national interest of Israel. It's all about the survivability of Netanyahu's government. But that's my personal view. I'm not sure that Trump shares this view. But for him, especially if he won't get the Nobel Prize this year, there will be a great incentive for him to complete it during the next year in order to get it a year from now, which is also dependent upon the results of this whole story.
Prime Minister, I also wanted to ask you about, Hamas being disarmed, for example, and vowing not to govern Gaza. If they don't do that, do you think that Benjamin Netanyahu will again find an excuse to launch some kind of assault on Gaza?
Look, October 7th created a compelling imperative for Israel to make sure that Hamas will never reign over the Gaza Strip and can threaten Israel from there. That's a compelling imperative. That what justified the war, and the war was successful against Hamas more than a year ago. And as a result of development, you also inflicted major blow on Hezbollah, seized the opportunity to destroy a lot of the military capabilities of Syria, and that opened the road to Iran, and Iran suffered a major blow. So we could, many months ago, could announce victory and get it to end. So it's not about the opportunity. There will be problem. For example, Hamas as a fighting army is not there anymore. He cannot repeat the 7th of October. But as a guerrilla force, they can fight forever. There always will be small arms. The idea that you can find every small arms among 2.2 million people is total delusion, totally detached from reality. Even in the West Bank, Judea and Samaria, where we are reigning over 2 or 2.5 or 3 million Palestinians, for 58 years, there are still at least tens of thousands, probably hundreds of thousands weapons. Even in Israel itself, within proper Israel, among non-Jewish communities, there are certain communities where every family has certain kind of small arm. So it's an illusion. It's just the idea that you can dismantle every Kalashnikov from Hamas is just an illusion. It's setting a target that cannot be achieved. The only way to defeat Hamas, and we told it from day one when Biden was still a president, only way to defeat Hamas is to replace it by a different entity, which is legitimate by international law, by international community, by the members to the peace agreement, namely Egypt and Jordan, the members of Abraham Accord, namely Emirates and others, and legitimate in the eyes of the Palestinians themselves. Legitimacy is the code name of what could be done and not. If we try, Israelis, to impose upon the other side things which are not legitimate in their mind, it won't work. And even with Turkey and Qatar, there is a need always to find a fine line where somehow all the players have certain amount of satisfaction. In fact, the mentioning of Tony Blair is very well fit into this role because he knows the place, he knows the people, he knows the nuances of how to establish some compromise without insulting or humiliating any side. And he has a lot of experience from the quartet and for his term as a prime minister. He could be a good, very good kind of agent to help it happening.
Well, Prime Minister Ehud Barak, we're really grateful for all of your thoughts here on the programme this evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jan.